Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and today we're going to discuss Season 8 of Game of Thrones and why it just failed. Well, at least it's over. I never thought I would be begging for the end of Game of Thrones to just get here already and basically put me out of my misery, while also just not looking forward to the series finale even in the slightest. And yet, that's where I was earlier today before the final episode aired tonight. I've seen it. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've seen it, but major spoilers to come if you haven't watched this episode or obviously any of season 8. So of course I'll be talking about this final episode and the final foolishness, but honestly, I was just there with it. I had no passion, I had no feelings. I just kind of was watching because I've already been like stabbed through the heart when it comes to Game of Thrones. I was already just like done with it. So they didn't do anything so outrageous to me or so ridiculous that further killed my spirit. They continued the foolishness, and thus here we are. But I'm going to be talking about why season 8 as a whole just failed, why it did not work, why it is such an utter disappointment to me and many other fans out there, and critics, it seems. And we will be going back to season 7 as well, because I think that definitely is where a lot of the problems began. But the biggest problem is the writing, period, point blank. The writing is the problem. Specifically, the fundamental aspects of writing. George R.R. Martin and the first 5 seasons or so of this TV show were character-driven stories. We really spent a lot of time developing characters and really getting to know each and every person within this world and kind of just living within this world with them as they went through struggles, as they went through all of these different trials and tribulations. But it was always character first. Always character first. However, the last 2 seasons have been plot first. And that's a huge swing in the way that the show was formatted. For so long, it was about the characters doing things that led up to events, that led to plot pieces unfolding. Instead, these final 2 seasons, and I would argue heavily this season, have been about we need this plot to happen, so the characters have to just do whatever we say to get to this final plot point to happen. And that can be fine if that's just how your story is set up. Let the viewer know what it is you want. Now, I can always give them just a tad bit of leeway with this good old D&D because they signed on to adapt somebody's work, and George R. R. Martin has not written a single word since they've started the show. I'm sure they thought in 9 years they would be able to get that next book at least, or probably they thought they would be able to finish off the series and just adapt. Instead, they had to write something on their own. It doesn't make it any less disappointing because what they decided to do and the direction they decided to go, they assassinated pretty much each and every character on the show, set aside maybe 2. But that is why nothing in this final season felt earned. Nothing in this final season felt organic. We're going to get into a longer series of Daenerys here shortly. But that's why her twist at the penultimate episode was a disaster. Because it wasn't built like every other twist in the show had been built. Every twist, every action was done seemingly purely for shock value without doing any legwork. And that's why, when looking back, this season doesn't feel like season 3 as we led up to the Red Wedding. Because Robb Stark made plenty of mistakes, just errors that were in line with his character and how his character acted, his moral set as a character, led him to make mistakes that ultimately led to the Red Wedding happening. But everybody here was acting within character. Walder Frey, Robb Stark, Catelyn Stark, who also contributed to the ultimate demise of the Stark family, The Lannisters, everybody, acted within the character that had been developed, but we were still shocked. We all were still stunned when the Red Wedding happened. Ned Stark's beheading, the first major shock of the series, happened because everybody was acting within what the character was. Ned Stark never once in the 9 episodes just completely did a 180 as a character and that's why he got beheaded. No, he was beheaded because of who he was as a person. And Joffrey did it because who he was as a person. Cersei did what she did because who she was as a person. Everybody acted reasonably within who they were. This season, instead of just being with these characters, watching them make decisions, watching them unfold before our eyes, and that leading to possibly shocking events, leading to predictable events, leading wherever it may go, this season we saw the strings, and that was very disappointing. We saw that this character has to die, this thing has to happen here, this thing has to happen here. That's why this season had so many outrageous moments that were shocks, yet it was completely predictable. Nothing here happened that was truly shocking. It was only shocking because it came out of nowhere and made no sense. Another problem with the writing this season is that they went full-on blockbuster mode. We sacrificed any and all character development, whether it was supposed to be happening now or whether it was 7 seasons worth of character development. All of that was just thrown out the window in favor of big action set pieces. In hindsight, did the Battle for Winterfell need to be a full hour and a half long? No, definitely not. Did we need to spend a good 40 minutes or so on a dragon literally burning down a city and not much else developmentally happening? No, we did not. Did we need the final episode to focus on random nonsense such as Tyrion shuffling chairs? No, we didn't. The show was never battle and action heavy. As surprising as it was, as flair and awe-inducing as it could be, that was never the driving force. But this season, the action set pieces and the big craziness took up just about as much screen time as anything else. And then when we did calm down and get nice character moments, well, they seemed pretty wasted and seemed, again, what's the point of this? Especially when we get to the end of the series, you're asking a whole lot of what's the point of this? So that leads to everybody's favorite buzzwords when it comes to Game of Thrones Season 8, and that is subverting expectations. And here's the problem with that in this final season. There's subverting expectations, and then there's just bad writing, and that's pretty much where this season fell into, honestly. Others can have other opinions, always. That's great. I'd love to talk about it. I don't know that my mind can be changed at this point. I don't know if your mind can be changed at this point, but it is what it is. However, not following through, to me, is not subverting expectation. Setting up storylines to do nothing with them is bad writing. It just is what it is. Establishing character growth to throw it into the garbage or do an unexplained 180 is bad writing. People may, in fact, get angry because the show doesn't go where you'd hope it would go, but they move on with it because it made sense, it was well written. Nobody wanted Red Wedding to happen, nobody wanted Shireen to be burned at the stake, nobody wanted Ned to be beheaded, nobody wanted a lot of the events that have taken place throughout the first 6 seasons of this show. However, they took place, we thought back on them, understood, and moved on. This season, nothing made sense, as I've talked about, so it's harder to move on. And part of that is that, again, subverting expectations is the buzzword to take place of shock for shock value. Nonsensical happenings taking place of anything logical. Now, I'm just going to start by saying I didn't mind Arya killing the Night King. I will admit it is a strange choice, given the fact that Jon's entire storyline pretty much has built up to and around the Night's King and the Whites and all of the undead. But in her character, she had earned the skills to get where she was to make that all happen. And Jon, as much as we love Jon, had kind of made himself that character that we saw in the episode that wouldn't be able to get to him. However, symbolism just thrown out the window. The writers set up these little beacons and really highlighted certain events or certain lines of dialogue or certain horses to be some sort of symbolism, to mean something at all. And yet they meant nothing. We did nothing with them. They were never brought up again. They were never thought of again. We have storylines, story arcs, such as Jon being a Targaryen, that were set up. There was so much buildup. There was so much that went into bringing that to life for it to go nowhere. What's the point? And that's not good writing. If it swerves into a direction that you're not anticipating, sure, that is a subversion of expectations. However, for it to just be nothing, I mean, I guess technically that subverts expectations, but it's not a quality way to do so. Instead, it leaves me and many others out here looking at the ending of Game of Thrones like, what was the point of all of this? There was literally no point. It had nearly nothing to say, and we virtually ended up right back where we began, even with all of this ham-fisted talk about if you do what we say here, you will break the will regardless of who it is. Okay. I also had a big problem with the season when it came to female characters and the message behind the other. So I know people don't want to acknowledge racism and sexism in their media. I know, SJW, blah, blah, blah. But this season had a lot of misogynistic undertones, whether you like it or not. They're there. First of all, the conflict between Daenerys and Sansa is ridiculous. It will always be outrageous. It was always unwarranted and never should have lasted like it did. We'll get to more of that actually in Jon's character discussion. But pitting two females in this like little catty petty fight who are on the same side against each other is and then making all of the females devolve into this emotional pool of mess outside of Arya. What are we doing? Many people will defend that Brienne moment. I'm so glad we at least got to see Brienne again. So that was not the last thing we ever saw of her. But even in the final episode, she's still sitting there writing about Jaime and all his wonderful conquests. Okay. First of all, since when is it the knights who do those journal entries? I don't know. Isn't that like Sam's job or something? But regardless, really, we're really going to make Brienne's entire final season revolve around a man, including her becoming a knight. It turned out Jaime just wanted to sleep with her. Jaime just loved her. That's why he knighted her. It undermines and undercuts all of the development and all of the work she's done as a character to go down the route they went with her and Jaime. And it's really disappointing. Then we move to Daenerys. Oh my goodness. Her entire season 8 storyline was revolved around bitches be crazy. That is pretty much the Dany subline. Because what in the world? She was angry, mostly justifiably angry throughout most of this season, and her anger, for justified reasons, was seen as madness. Her emotions made her seem mad. And for them to do that to a female character, that be her descent into madness, is like horrifyingly misogynistic in my point of view. And then to make the last straw being she didn't get the D, but then in the very next episode also, she's such an idiot that she forgets that she didn't get the D and that's what sent her into madness. She gonna try again. Get out. And then Cersei. Part of Cersei's line is okay with me. However, we have the biggest baddie of the series, which you've established yourself since you made this the follow-up to the Night King. She's kind of the overall baddie of Game of Thrones. Died crying in Jaime's arms about how she doesn't want her child to die. No cunningness. No Cersei that we've seen for so long making plans, just sobbing away, not wanting her kid to get crushed in the rubble. Alrighty. And then, of course, we have men writing something into Sansa's storyline that thanking her rapist for making her the person she is today. Without him, she would still be a little bird. It's gross. It is tone deaf. And what? It's gross. I know that that's not what they were trying to say. I know they were trying to say everything you go through in life makes you the person you are, but there were so many better ways to say it than what they wrote. Whew. And then when we move to the racism of the show, I will say it always and forever. Putting Missandei back into chains to chop her head off, the only female of color that was named on this show, the only black woman for sure that was named on this show, you would make her die a slave again, is incredibly tone deaf. Incredibly tone deaf. And I found it to be quite offensive. But the Sansa and the Missandei thing could be fixed by hiring female and people of color on your writing staff. But you won't do that, so we're left with incredibly tone-deaf situations left, right, and center. But the bigger problem for me this season was that the Dothraki, one of our only armies of color, was entirely disposable. You just sent them off unceremoniously into the darkness to just get slaughtered. The Unsullied basically had the same fate, but at least we got Grey Worm there, right? But then it goes further. It goes into what it all represented. Of course, the Northerners would be a little bit skeptical. Maybe they'd never seen anybody of color before, so they'd be like, ooh. But for them to stay racist toward the Unsullied and the Dothraki after they just saved their asses and sacrificed everything and everyone, all of their friends, to save you, sorry fools, so you could retreat and live. The fact that they wouldn't really budge on that, okay. Sansa acknowledges it, but won't really budge on any of the facts. Okay. And then that dialogue comes through of they're not from the north, including Daenerys, so we don't trust them. We'll never trust them. We'll never let them in because they're not one of us. Problematic. Then we get down to King's Landing. Cersei has been going on and on about the Dothraki screamers, the Unsullied, all of these uncultured people, and this foreign queen coming to tear us down and basically take away the way of life we know. Okay. Sounds in character for her. Sounds like a good message to use, a very topical message. Instead, they do just that. Instead, the others come in, kill everyone, tear everything to the ground, and destroy the entire civilization. That message of the others being bad was omnipresent through the entire show. The queen, the woman who spent her entire storyline freeing slaves and, had amassed an army full of people of color, has problematic moments and racial tone problems of its own, but the simple fact is she was the champion of the people of color who had an army full of people of color. Not only were they never accepted, but they turned out to be the people who raped and pillaged and tore the city down and were just terrible. So yay, great message to send about the other. And that's my big problem when it comes to all of that. So we just talked about Daenerys. Let's go ahead and get into her character assassination and why it just continued to not make sense all the way through to the finale of the season. First of all, I just want to point out that Mad Queen theories were actually kind of wrong because apparently she didn't go mad. This was just her new way of thinking. She didn't just lose her mind. This was calculated, apparently. According to that series finale, this was just her new way of thought. And they tried to use Tyrion kind of as the mouthpiece of many of you out there of, oh, look, she killed all of these people. Yeah, they were bad people, but there's gonna be bad people everywhere she goes. What? How does that explain her just burning the city to the ground? It doesn't. Tyrion and yous out there. So she didn't go mad. She didn't just lose her mind. She made the conscious decision to completely throw away all of her morals that she has ever had in her whole entire life and do what she just did. And then she becomes the biggest murderer, the most treacherous tyrant in the history of Westeros. Killed more people than all the rest of them probably combined by burning down King's Landing as she did. Like, seriously. How are you gonna introduce this biggest villain that the show really has ever seen with an episode and a half to go and conclude it halfway through the finale? She got about an episode to be the biggest villain of the whole entire series. And how does she get taken down? by being an idiot. By one, having Grey Worm or no one around while she was in the throne room, just letting Jon Snow walk right in with no protection around her. Two, going up to him and throwing herself at him for the third time for rejection this season. And have Jon inexplicitly still love her, but not really love her at all. I don't know. And then her to get stabbed crying over a man. What? And then when she dies, it just unleashes this whole other thing. Her armies were fiercely loyal to her, first of all. Let's just say that. Her dragon, I'm glad that they at least made the dragon feel with her, because they did make it pretty clear throughout the series even that she had a special connection with Drogon, that he could sense when she needed trouble. That's why he came to save her several times when she was screwed. Drogon would come to her rescue. They had a connection. He mourned Jorah with her. That was evident even in the show, and I'm glad they at least made him feel that moment that she died and come to her. And that scene was actually really beautiful to see him and his reaction to his mother. What followed did not make sense to me. Some people are trying to defend it as Drogon understood that the throne is what actually killed his mother, not Jon Snow. First of all, that would imply that the writers gave that much complexity to the thought of this dragon, which they haven't given that much complex thought to any of the characters in season 8 at all. Second of all, he's connected to his mother. He's a Targaryen with his mother. And I don't think Daenerys would share that sentiment. I really, really don't think that that is what was running through Daenerys' head as she died. There was no indication, because she didn't speak, she just cried, had tears rolling down, and died, that she felt a sorrow that the throne had consumed her. Like, that didn't seem, by their own logic, to be her way of being at the end. So why would Drogon just mourn her death, burn the throne down, and fly away? Makes no sense that he would not have killed Jon. I'm sorry. There's no way you could have me believe he would just fly away without killing the person who killed his mom. But I do think it was somewhat poetic that King's Landing, the throne, pretty much all of it, all of the things that the Targaryens had built were burnt down and died with Daenerys. But no. And then we get to the armies. First of all, why would Grey Worm and the Unsullied keep Tyrion hostage for weeks and not just kill him as soon as Daenerys was dead? Why wouldn't they have just killed Jon as soon as they found out he killed Daenerys? It makes no sense at all. They do not fall under Westerosian rule. They never have until their queen took over, who they were fiercely loyal to. And you're telling me they're just going to go out? I didn't buy any of it, but okay. And then when it comes down to Daenerys' arc as a whole, there may have been foreshadowings of Daenerys being a ruthless leader. Let me just tell you, there have been plenty of ruthless leaders. They tried to make it seem like Jon has never done anything like what she did before they wrote her to just flip her lid. Jon has. 2, the beloved Ned Stark, episode 1, we see him chopping off somebody's head for treason, for leaving a wall because he was scared of undead people. Ooh, pretty ruthless. And that's somebody he cared about. That's somebody he knew. Robb Stark, ruthless over betrayal. Everybody has done it. Everyone. Every good, noble leader was shown that. But were we to believe that Ned was on the road to madness? Were we to believe Robb was on the road to madness? No. Their mistakes and what they did throughout led to their demise, but nobody ever questioned it. Another case being Arya Stark. Let's take a look at Arya Stark and what she's done throughout the series. Literally killed out of revenge, and that's it. She wiped out an entire house of people purely out of vengeance, not for the greater good. Not once has she killed for the greater good. Even at times throughout the series, she literally killed somebody because they didn't want to give her some of their food. She murdered somebody in cold blood, basically. But never has Arya been seen as anything other than a heroic figure in this series. And then Sansa, threw down a judgment onto Littlefinger with the only actual, solid, provable proof she had was that he killed her aunt to save her, which she had lied for him in defense of him about because she wanted her aunt dead anyway. And that's really the only actual proof they had. They wouldn't have been able to prove anything else. Bran saying so? Okay. So what? And then she had Arya execute the sentence. Even though her father, all of her brothers, the entire Norse motto is that if you're the one who's so bad to bring down the sentence, you are the one that has to bring down the knife or the sword. And she didn't do that, but yet she wasn't seen as anything but honorable. Not to mention, all throughout season 7, the fact that Arya threatened to kill Sansa as part of a coup that they had going, first of all, was done in their bedroom where nobody else could see them, nobody else could hear them, nobody else knew what was going on. So most of their interactions happened in very private quarters. So that's what made that whole twist a little bit hard to believe. So many people were doing yes, Arya, as she threatened to slice her own sister's face off and wear it. But she wasn't going mad, right? Arya was just being little assassin Arya, never once killed for the greater good until the Night King. But she was never, ever seen as anything but a hero. And people are throwing out so many moments of Daenerys saying, I will take what's mine with fire and blood, when she was literally held captive with her dragons stolen from her, and she was betrayed. Okay. She said, I will burn cities to the ground to get what was stolen from me and my family. We will ransack cities and burn them all to the ground. When she was literally wandering through the desert, and if she didn't get into that city at that moment, they would all die. Her and all of the Dothraki would be dead. So we need to bring context into when Daenerys got ruthless. And I just need to say this as well. I've already made the comparison to Ned, to Jon, and let's just be honest with Jon. I know we were all pissed at Ollie, and most of us were like, yeah, kill Ollie, sure. But Ollie was a child, first of all, who had seen his own family get murdered by the wildlings, who Jon then brought in to start this war and this conflict, and he was being manipulated by adults. Jon showed no mercy and killed him because he betrayed him. The Charlies were acting in treason. They betrayed House Tyrell, which was an allied force to Daenerys. Thus, they betrayed Daenerys. They would have killed Dany if they got the chance, because guess what? They were our soldiers on the battlefield, just like all them other soldiers. So, what was different about her sentence than Ned Stark chopping off somebody's head for leaving his post because he was scared of whites? But then we get to all of the stuff happening in Meereen and all of the stuff happening in Astapor and all of the other Yunkai, all those cities throughout Slaver Bay. I just want to say this. If you honestly think that the slave owners will just free slaves and say, you know what, you're right, this is the right thing to do, and let it go without a fight, may I point you to history? May I point you to all the United States Civil War, first of all, but world history? That's not exactly how it works. And if you defend slave owners and mercy towards them, knowing history, I have nothing left for you, honestly. Did all of this maybe foreshadow that Daenerys had a ruthless style of leadership? That can be argued. Did it set the seeds for her going mad? No. And then turns out she didn't go mad. It was just a change of heart, I guess. Nothing that she did throughout Slaver's Bay warranted the payoff we got of her making the decision to burn down King's Landing. Nothing. There's really nothing you can point to that would ever say so, honestly. I'm just being honest. It does not make sense. We can go back and forth on the points if you'd like. It just, nothing there points to that being the logical conclusion. And the problem is, in fact, over these last 2 seasons, unlike the fall in the Red Wedding and such, Daenerys was actually set up to fail. Because when did Dany ever really do anything wrong? in these last 2 seasons to lead us to where we were. She surrounded herself over the years with smart advisors, very intelligent people who were well reasoned, who did tame any rash thoughts that maybe she did have. She put them in place. However, suddenly overnight, they all got stupid as a bag of rocks. Tyrion went from being the smartest man in all of land to, like, literally the dumbest. Varys went from being super smart to literally doing nothing, being stupid, dumb. So that led to the situations of her having to make a decision. Do I listen to my advisors? And most of the time she did, and that led to her losing and her getting whooped and her getting people killed, listening to her intelligent advisors. Or do I act on my impulse, which may have led to her just taking the Red Keep right off the gate and not having to go down this road, presenting more of a moral dilemma, but a choice. She would have had a choice. But she would have been seen as Mad Queen if she didn't listen to her wise advisors. Even though 3 of her allies told her, head straight for that Red Keep, and she listened to the wise man Tyrion. Should have listened to Olenna, girl. And then we look at this whole battle within the North. She could go fight her own battle that she's been wanting to fight for this whole time, or she can go do the right thing and fight for the North. She does the right thing. She fights against the Whites. There, she's not trusted. They don't like her. They don't care what she did. So she does the right thing and gets punished. If she had gone to the Red Keep, she would have been seen as mad and crazy. Oh! And then she set up to fail because everyone around her is just being killed off in nonsensical ways. Missandei should not have died. There was an illogical attack. There's no reason. Again, if there is a reason, it would be Tyrion, Jon, and Varys set up this horrible plan that they didn't even have scouting ships. What? 2, she was flying in the air. She didn't see those ships. I will never believe it. And then her dragon is inexplicably shot out of the sky. And then they proceed to show that Euron and any of these things can't even land like a graze of a wing from there on out. Pointless death. 2, she set up to fail by Jon Snow. We'll get into that here in a second. But the fact that Jon continued to just brush her to the side and reject her without so much as speaking to her, and then claims to love her in the end. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That was all that Daenerys was left with. Thus, her payoff was so unsatisfactory, so out of nowhere. The writing was so rushed that it just didn't make sense. And it was a complete and total assassination of a character that we built up for 8 seasons to be a noble and just, if not hard-nosed ruler. But hard-nosed does not equal mass murderer. And then when you do have her go Mad Queen, again, it's not mad, but she gets taken out in an episode and is no threat at all. So let's talk about Jon. Let's take the season at face value and look at Jon Snow. Jon Snow lied to everyone. He said, I bent the knee to get Daenerys, her dragons, and her army here to help us defeat the Night King. There was no other way. That is a blatant and provable lie. She agreed to help the North and fight the noble battle before he bent the knee, which he subsequently did later in the conversation. Out of love, out of respect for what she just did, out of the fact that she just saved his life, probably all of the above, but he bent the knee after she had already committed to his cause. But for whatever reason, to save face, to make himself look better, I don't know. I don't think anybody can say why Jon continued on with this lie when he's supposedly the most noble man that can't even lie to save people. He always has to be truthful. Yet this whole season he perpetuated a lie. A lie that could be explained for the reason the North didn't trust her. The reason that Sansa didn't trust her, because there was literally no reason for Sansa not to trust Daenerys as she did. None at all. And if that is the reason, then, Jon, that was your fault. You're the reason that there could not be any connection between the North and Dany. Second of all, you couldn't even talk to her. You literally just, ran away every time she tried to talk to you or be close to you or whatever. You couldn't just be like, look, I love you as my queen. You're my aunt. We can't do this. It's not my way. I will support you. All that, blah, 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 but it's not my way. No, he's just so dumb that no. Not to mention he was just useless. Can anyone explain to me why the Lord of the Light brought Jon Snow back? To go get Daenerys? Was that his one purpose? To go get Dany? To come help them fight? It doesn't make sense that he would get brought back to life by the Lord of Light and then do nothing, really, when it actually came down to it. Because Sam and Bran had all the other information we needed. If Dany was actually essential, which she was, I think Bran would have gotten somebody to go get her. Also, what was the point of his heritage? Why did we ever need to know he was a Targaryen that wasn't used? Other than as a weapon, again, against Daenerys. Setting her up to fail, you introduce and shoehorn in, shove this extra Targaryen thing in here for no reason. He doesn't look like a Targaryen, nothing. Like, it's pointless. So we can get to see Jon ride a dragon. Woo! It was only introduced to tear down Daenerys. Great. That's great. What a wonderful reason to further pigeonhole in this character to do a complete 180 of the character we've known. You introduce something just to have it go up in flames. There was really no reason for it. Also, what was he doing at the end of this season? Why was Tormund and the rest still in Winterfell? I thought Tormund was going back north of the Wall a long time ago, but he just chilled there waiting for Jon? And also, what was the point? What was the point? Jon just ended right back up at the Wall. Cool. But then going off of Jon's heritage, Bran being named king of the 6 kingdoms. Huh? First of all, so you're telling me Bran had them all save him and do all that nonsense because he knew he was going to get king? That was a power move by Bran, the 3-eyed raven? Please. Furthermore, when they were sitting there to elect their leader, you had all of these lords here of the houses who we have been told all season long, all through this whole series, that they will always support the person with the strongest claim to the throne. Suddenly they're just like, yeah, we'll listen to Tyrion, who's been a complete and total idiot and wrong about everything for years and years and years, who's now a captor, probably should be dead. We'll listen to him rather than what we've been all about this whole time. Another thing, that was the big conflict of Daenerys versus Jon, because they're both Targaryen, was he's a male, they'll support him before they support her, and he has the rightful claim to the throne. Now they're just like, nah. Nobody was like, what about Gendry? He's an actual Baratheon now. He has the best claim. I mean, I guess Jon was prisoner, so there's that, but I'm pretty sure even Robin Arryn had the next claim. The Starks don't really have a claim to that throne. And neither did Cersei, mind you. She just took it. She just said, I'm going to go ahead and sit on this throne, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. But from there, how come we never saw the lords trying to knock her off? Because she presented the idea of a foreign queen coming? Why were the lords never like, this is a woman and she has zero, less than nothing. She has no claim to this throne. We never saw that either. But Bran was just a ridiculous, outrageous choice. Never should have been on the throne. Honestly, was pretty useless this whole series, but whatever. And then Tyrion is named Hand of the King. For what? He wasn't wrong about believing in Daenerys, like they kind of made it seem at the end that he believed in her, because who wouldn't believe in who Daenerys was for most of the show? He was an idiot because he was literally the worst Hand of the Queen ever. Every single decision he ever told Daenerys and she followed led to disaster. He was wrong 100% of the time as Hand of the Queen. Let's go ahead and keep him in that position, right? Okay. And then Arya gets plot armor herself, can survive everything, can be blasted with fire directly, can have boulders fall on her and still live. Arya. What was actually the point of her these last 2 episodes? Suddenly she's not about revenge. I don't really know. She doesn't try to go for the queen because she knew Jon would do the job. Since when? What would give her any faith that Jon would go and kill Daenerys? She wouldn't go just do it herself. And then she is now an explorer. She's just gonna go right off and see what's west of Westeros. Sure. But Arya leads us to just talking about subverting your expectations one final time and the importance of symbolism. Because we got that white horse with Arya. They spent quite a bit of time on the white horse for nothing. She wasn't even on it at the beginning of this episode. What's the point? What was the point of that white horse that you made seem so significant? Other than to make us look at you all crazy, because what was this perfectly calm, pristine white horse doing just chilling here while all the rest of them ran away? Was it Bran? If it was, that was stupid. But they weren't even going to touch on that. We're not even going to deal with that, touch on it, nothing. The importance of finding out Jon was a Targaryen? We don't know. There really wasn't any. To just add another spoke to the assassination of Dany. What was the point of bringing up those eyes again? The Night King, I guess, as that prophecy. Any of the prophecies in the show, I guess they kind of stuck with Daenerys putting her hand on that throne as ash falls, but glad just stuck to one. Stuck to Dany's prophecy. Also, that dragon flying over King's Landing did not need to be her burning down all of King's Landing. Let's just keep that clear too. Of course, Jaime, completely useless and pointless. His character turned out to be pointless. Why did we follow him all these years? Who cares? Cersei goes out horribly. Dany goes out horribly. Everybody's deaths are just ridiculous. I saw it coming. I saw right from that first episode, okay, they're really going to go Mad Queen. Okay, we're really going to do this, right? This whole end of the season was so predictable and ridiculous. It did feel like a poorly written fan fiction to me. And that's just how it is. Nothing was earned, nothing was developed, and the shame is they were offered more seasons, or at the very least, as many episodes as they needed to complete this story right, and the creators of the show decided we only need 6 to cram nonsense in, because we got Star Wars to get to. Just a disappointment and a complete and total failure on every single level. That is Game of Thrones Season 8. A complete and total failure. And when we end up at that very end, what was the point of it all, right? Those are the endings that make people real mad. Either you wake up for a dream and what was the point of it all? Or it's just nonsense, random woman. What was the point of this show? Game of Thrones, we went through all of these seasons just for you to ignore everything you had built, you had set up, you had established. What was the point of watching this show? So that's it. Those are basically my thoughts for season 8 of Game of Thrones and why it was such an epic failure. Let me know what you thought of season 8 of Game of Thrones. Do you agree? Do you disagree? We can have a fun, insightful conversation, respectful conversation in the comment section down below. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest videos. I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!